Hi everybody! So, it's been a bit since I've talked about this topic, and there's a bit to talk about. To my amazement, I still get people talking about the OPRP to this day, and it is clear that for a select few people, it was a somewhat important series to them. And I want to say that I'm sorry. The series itself was, and kind of still is, really important to me as well. For all types of reasons. For years, I worked on the series on and off. Even when content wasn't coming out, I was still at the very least working on the story behind the scenes. Because I never intended for things to play out the way they did. This video is to talk about how things have turned out and explain what's happening with the series. You see, I randomly got another comment about the series again, and it made me realize for the first time that, yes, in fact, the series is cancelled. I'm sure that isn't surprising, and it wasn't even surprising to me by the time I realized it, but that's where we currently are. However, it really wasn't that simple for a very long time. Before I really explain things, I do want to say to stick around to the end of the video for an announcement that just might get people excited. I will be dividing this video into segments in case you want to skip around. Other than that, let's start at the beginning. The OPRP was just a completely spur-of-the-moment thing. I had never seen a roleplay before and only really vaguely was familiar with what the term meant. And you can see that in the first episode I talk about this. I was going to do a One Piece Let's Play video, but decided to experiment and do an RP instead. I ended up liking it, plus the video got like 100 views over time, which was a large amount at that time period. So I ended up working on the series. At the same time, I actually had multiple successful types of content, and had somewhat established myself in the Call of Duty Zombies space. However, I clearly was more passionate about roleplays, so I focused on them instead. Things gradually began to shift, however. With each episode, I took the creation of it more seriously, and the series had consistently been growing in popularity. My perfectionism began to kick in, and kick in hard. I've said many times that each episode took twice as long to make as the last, which is not an exaggeration. With the finale of Season 1 taking 75 hours to produce, I still wasn't happy with it at all. In fact, I resented the fact it was going so well, because I knew that I could do so much better, which is what prompted me to take a couple months off to pull a full-time grind session to increase my skills. When I came back, I dropped Prison Escape Episode 1. Which took around 25 hours to produce, but was so far beyond anything that came before that a comparison couldn't even be made anymore. Because of the big break causing the views to nosedive and the huge boost in quality, I could finally live with the series as it was. Like it was finally good enough to be getting the views that it was getting. The next Prison Escape video is where things got bad again, because that video had already reached 100 hours of production time before I decided to split it into 2 videos, both of which still took a lot of time to finish. It perhaps got up to 150 hours of production in total, which, if I hadn't split it, would mean that I had once again doubled the production times. At the end of the day, a roleplay is simply just an animation you're using a game engine to make. An animation isn't easy, especially when you stop using the game engine and instead actually use a 3D animation software like I did. Oh, also somewhere in here I made almost the entirety of the first episode of Season 2 and just never released it. This is all to say, I was still making other content while working on the roleplay. In fact, I was making multiple other series of content. I was doing Let's Plays, discussion content, analysis content, and just a bunch of other miscellaneous things. Each of these individually was like running its own channel and matching the output rate of channels in said genres. I wasn't just making a video a day, many days I was making multiple, while also doing the roleplay. I was also doing college and high school at the same time, and soccer, which because of how much I was working out, was taking at least 2 to 3 hours a day, with many days I was working out more than that. All that is to say, this was before burnout was a thing that every YouTube creator and watcher knew about. I burned out, and I burned out really hard, like unable to do anything and heading to therapy hard. Even with that, I didn't cancel the series. In fact, after feeling better, I put out Falcon and Yonko, then finished the couple of episodes of Prison Escape. I then also created a couple other roleplays in this time period. The problem was that I really grew to hate editing in this time. Even now, it is something I barely tolerate instead of being something I used to love to do. I had really grandiose dreams for the roleplays I was making, however. The views and the fan interest was there. I knew that if I just grinded at it, I could go full time, keep improving my abilities, and then start bringing people on to help produce better and better content. The end goal was to do something like what Rooster Teeth or Team 4-Star have done, creating fan-made content while slowly improving and building a team to then work on an original series. In my case, an original 3D anime, and 3D because of the cost reasons, obviously. It seemed like such an obvious thing to do with the channel on YouTube, because as you may or may not know, I'm primarily a writer, and YouTube was just a fun thing I was doing on the side. Which is still the case. I do still upload infrequently across my multitude of channels. However, the amount of time I spent of roleplay production kept dropping. And simply put, the reason was that I wasn't very passionate about it. I could script out episodes and seasons all day long, but I just didn't love the other aspects of it anymore. The animation, the editing, marketing, audio was just all things I tolerated doing to get to the end result, which is not a healthy way to create art. If you like the sound of the result, but don't like the process to get there, then you shouldn't do the thing. Even though everything seemed to make so much sense on paper, I just didn't like the process of making the style of content anymore. So it just kind of stayed in limbo for a real long time, until reaching the inevitable point of being cancelled. Which brings us back here. I truly never did intend for the series to never get a proper ending. It actually is a major bummer that it has to come down to something like this. With that said, there isn't any way I could actually leave things as they currently stand. Which brings me to the announcement I spoke of. I'm going to continue the One Piece roleplay in another format. I'm going to find a way to tell the rest of the story in a satisfying manner. Currently, my mind is racing with how exactly this potential format could come together. I know that I will be dictating the written plans for the series, which is a lot of seasons of content in of itself. However, the main thing that I am currently going back and forth on is if I develop the series the way I was planning to. You see, I had a really major twist planned for the roleplay that never got fully ironed out on exactly when it would happen. Depending on where I place it, that shapes the story massively, including how the telling of it will be done. I also don't know what production value the series will be. I want to recap the first season, which I can just use footage from the series to do, but what about future seasons? I kind of want to use AI art to perhaps develop some visuals for the series, but that is not just a huge time investment, but likely a monetary one, since my computer isn't strong enough to train a model in order to have a consistent character design. So if I wanted to have characters presented, I would have to invest a lot of time and money getting the character designs trained. Not to mention difficulties that would undoubtedly come about because of said production decisions. Plus, visuals would hire the editing time. One of the biggest questions is if I want to disassociate the series from Minecraft, turning it into more of a casual One Piece fan series. If I did, I would likely want to tell the story from the beginning, while changing things around, which, if I did, would greatly impact the coming twist side of things. It is a moderately complex series of questions, especially in the whole visual side of things and how much time I give to developing the story. If each season is covered in each video, or if each video covers an episode, I really don't know. For now, I think the best thing to do is cover the content already out, push forward to covering some new content, then handle the evolution of the series in whichever way seems best at the time. So that's what I'm going to do. I hope you look forward to the coming content, even if it isn't exactly what you expected or wanted. And until next time, bye everybody.